They all stared at me like I was the help who crashed the party. My ex-husband's new wife smirked, hand on her pregnant belly, while he watched with cold eyes. They wanted me broken and begging. But what I pulled out of my purse that day? Nobody saw it coming. Before we dive into this story, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because you won't believe how this ends. Trust me, you'll want to share this with everyone you know. Now let me tell you how I went from humiliated ex-wife to the woman who owned that room. The invitation came on a Tuesday. Cream-colored cardstock, embossed gold lettering, the kind of fancy that screams money. "You're invited to celebrate the upcoming arrival of baby Preston," it read. Gerald Preston, my ex-husband, and underneath, in that same golden script, hosted by Gerald and Whitney Preston. I stood in my kitchen, coffee getting cold in my hand, staring at this piece of paper like it might explode. My best friend Rochelle called it audacity. "Girl, why would he invite you to his baby shower? That's just disrespectful." And she was right. It was disrespectful. But I knew Gerald. After 12 years of marriage, I knew how his mind worked. He never did anything without a reason, without some angle he was playing. This invitation wasn't about celebration. It was about something else entirely. Let me back up and tell you how I got here. I grew up on the east side of Detroit, the youngest of 4 kids. My mama cleaned houses, and my daddy worked at the auto plant until the layoffs came. I learned early that if you wanted something in this life, you had to work 3 times as hard as everyone else, especially if you looked like me. So I did. 3 jobs through college, student loans that would make you cry, and somehow I made it to law school. That's where I met Gerald. He wasn't rich then. Matter of fact, he was as broke as I was, eating ramen and dreaming big about this tech startup idea he had. Something about streamlining supply chain logistics. I won't bore you with the details. But he had this energy, this confidence that made you believe he could actually pull it off. We started dating my 2nd year of law school. By my 3rd year, I wasn't just his girlfriend. I was his everything, his assistant, his marketing brain, his cheerleader, his accountant. I'd study for my exams during the day and build his pitch decks at night. We got married right after I passed the bar. I was 24 years old, wearing a simple white dress from Macy's, thinking I was the luckiest woman alive. And for a while, maybe I was. We worked side by side, building his company from our cramped studio apartment. I'd take meetings with investors while he coded. I'd negotiate contracts while he developed the product. When he needed a COO but couldn't afford one, I became that too. I put my legal career on hold. Just temporarily, I told myself, just until the company got off the ground. That temporary hold lasted 12 years. 12 years of putting his dreams first, 12 years of late nights and early mornings, 12 years of telling myself that when we made it, it would all be worth it. And we did make it. His company, TechFlow Solutions, went from that tiny apartment to a $40 million valuation in 5 years, then $100 million, then $300 million. By year 10, we were talking about going public. Gerald was being featured in Forbes and TechCrunch. We moved into a mansion in the hills. We had everything, except we didn't. Because every time I brought up having children, Gerald would say, "Not yet, baby. The company needs us right now." Every time I mentioned maybe going back to practicing law, he'd remind me how essential I was to the business. And I believed him. I believed that I was building our future together, that all this sacrifice meant something. Then came the morning he asked for a divorce. We were sitting at our marble kitchen island, the one I'd picked out, in the house I'd decorated, eating breakfast before another day at the company I'd helped build. He just looked at me and said, "I think we want different things now. I need someone who understands my lifestyle." His lifestyle, the one we built together, the one that apparently I couldn't understand because I didn't come from money like his new circle of friends did. Whitney was her name. Whitney Carmichael, from the Carmichael family, old money, society pages, the whole thing. She was a lifestyle influencer or brand consultant or whatever rich people call themselves when they don't actually work. Blonde, tall, connected to everyone who mattered in Gerald's new world. Everything I wasn't, everything he apparently decided he wanted instead. The divorce took 2 years. 2 years of lawyers and depositions, and Gerald trying to argue that my contributions to the company weren't really contributions, that I was just a supportive spouse, not a business partner. Can you imagine? 12 years of my life, my career, my dreams, and he wanted to reduce it all to supportive spouse. My lawyer had to fight for every dollar. In the end, I got a settlement. Good money, not great money. Nowhere near what I deserved. But I was tired. Tired of fighting, tired of looking at his face across a conference table, tired of being reminded that I'd given everything to someone who saw me as replaceable. So, when that invitation arrived 3 years after our divorce was finalized, I knew exactly what it was. Gerald wanted to show off. He wanted me to see his new life, his new wife, his upcoming baby, everything he'd told me we couldn't have because of the business. He wanted me to feel small, used, forgotten. Rochelle told me to throw it away. Don't give him the satisfaction, she said. But something in me needed to go. Not for closure. I was past that. I needed to go because I had something to say, something to show, and I'd been waiting for the right moment. You see, what Gerald didn't know was that I hadn't fallen apart after the divorce. I'd gotten up, I took my settlement money, and I invested it carefully. I studied the market. I networked with people who actually respected me, and I started my own law firm specializing in tech contracts and intellectual property. All those years of watching Gerald's business, learning the industry, making connections, I'd learned more than he realized. My firm started small, just me and one associate, but we were good. Better than good. Within a year, I had clients. Within 2 years, I was hiring. By year 3, my firm was valued at $200 million, and I was representing some of the biggest names in tech, including some of Gerald's competitors. That's how I learned his company was in trouble. Not public trouble, Gerald was too proud for that, but real trouble. Bad investments, expansion that happened too fast, debt he'd taken on to maintain appearances. He needed an investor, and he needed one fast. So when his people started quietly looking for capital, I heard about it. And I made some calls. Strategic calls. Quiet calls. I bought out his struggling investors, the ones who were getting nervous, who wanted to cash out before things got worse. I used shell companies, LLCs, a whole network that couldn't be traced back to me easily. Piece by piece, share by share, I bought my way back into the company I'd helped build. By the time Gerald realized what was happening, I owned 51% of TechFlow Solutions. I was the majority shareholder. I was his boss. And he had no idea when he sent me that invitation. So I decided to go to that baby shower, not to cause a scene, not to be petty, but because Gerald had taught me something important during our marriage. Business is business, and timing is everything. This was my moment, and I wasn't going to waste it. The morning of the shower, I took my time getting ready. I chose a simple navy dress, elegant but understated, pearl earrings my grandmother left me, nude heels. I wasn't there to compete with Whitney's designer everything. I was there to handle business. In my purse, I carried a manila envelope. Inside that envelope were documents that would change everything. The party was at our old house. Well, Gerald's house now, the one I used to live in, used to decorate, used to call home. Pulling up that long driveway felt surreal. There were valets and a red carpet and balloon arrangements that probably cost more than most people's cars. Ice sculptures, a champagne fountain, a live string quartet. The whole thing screamed, "Look how successful I am," which was very Gerald. I handed my keys to the valet and he looked confused, checked his list. "Name?" he asked. When I told him, he frowned. "I'm sorry, you're not on the VIP list." I smiled. "That's fine. I'm still invited." I walked past him, and I could feel his uncertainty, but he didn't stop me. Inside was even more extravagant. White and gold everywhere, bouquets of roses taller than me, servers walking around with trays of fancy appetizers, and people, so many people. Gerald's new circle. Tech executives, investors, socialites, influencers, people who smiled fake smiles and measured your worth by your last name and your net worth. I recognized some faces from when I was married to Gerald, people who used to be friendly, who used to invite us to things. Now they looked at me with surprise, with confusion, with pity. That's when Whitney appeared, 8 months pregnant, glowing in a designer white gown that probably cost $10,000. She floated over with this expression that was half surprise, half satisfaction. "Oh my goodness, you actually came," she said, loud enough for people nearby to hear. "Gerald said you probably couldn't afford anything from our registry, but how sweet of you to show up anyway." I smiled. Didn't take the bait. "Congratulations, Whitney. You look beautiful." She touched her belly, that universal gesture of pregnant women, but the way she did it felt like a weapon, like she was reminding me, I have what you couldn't give him. "We're just so blessed," she said. "Gerald is such an amazing provider. I don't know how I got so lucky." Before I could respond, Gerald himself walked over. He looked good, I'll give him that. Expensive suit, expensive watch, expensive everything. He smiled at me, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Thank you for coming," he said, all formal and polite. "It means a lot that you're here to celebrate our new beginning." Our new beginning, not his. Ours, making sure I knew I wasn't part of it. "Wouldn't miss it," I said simply. The party continued, and I mostly stayed quiet, observing. I watched Gerald work the room like a politician. I watched Whitney hold court with her influencer friends, posing for photos, touching her belly. I watched people congratulate them, toast to them, celebrate them, and I waited. Then came the games. Whitney had organized this special activity where guests had to share their biggest success story or achievement. One by one, people stood up and bragged. Gerald's business partner, Christopher, talked about securing a major new investor for the company, and when he said that, I nearly laughed. A woman named Lauren talked about her charity foundation. A man named Brad talked about his real estate portfolio. On and on, everyone showing off, trying to prove they belonged in this room with these people. When they got to me, Whitney's smile turned sharp. "Oh, sweetie," she said, voice dripping with fake concern. "You don't have to share if you don't want to. We know the divorce was really hard on you. It's okay if you're still finding your feet." The room went silent. Everyone was watching, waiting to see if I'd cry, if I'd leave, if I'd make a scene. This was it. This was the moment Gerald had orchestrated, the public humiliation, the reminder that I was the ex-wife, the one who got left behind, the one who didn't fit in this world anymore. I stood up slowly. "Actually," I said, my voice steady, "I'd love to share. But maybe after the gift opening, I brought something special." Whitney's eyes narrowed slightly, but she couldn't refuse without looking rude. "Of course," she said. The gift opening was exactly what you'd expect. Designer baby clothes, luxury cribs, matching strollers, even a donation in the baby's name to some exclusive prep school for future enrollment. Whitney squealed over each one. Gerald made jokes and comments, and everyone laughed on cue. Then they got to my gift. It was simple, just a manila envelope with their names on it. Whitney held it up and people murmured. Someone actually laughed. "A card," Whitney said, trying to sound gracious but failing. "How thoughtful." She opened it, pulled out the papers inside, started reading. I watched her face change. Confusion first, then shock. She looked at Gerald, who took the papers from her hands. I watched the color drain from his face as he read. His hands started to shake. I stood up again. The room was confused now, sensing something had shifted. "Congratulations on your baby," I said, my voice clear and calm. "Since I helped build your first empire, Gerald, I thought I'd give you something practical for this new chapter." Gerald looked at me, and for the first time in years, I saw fear in his eyes. "Those documents," I continued, "show that I'm now the majority shareholder of TechFlow Solutions. 51% to be exact. Over the past year, I've been quietly acquiring shares from your nervous investors, the ones worried about the company's debt and unstable growth. Christopher here can confirm, the major new investor he mentioned earlier? That was my firm." Christopher, to his credit, nodded. He'd known all along. He was a businessman, and he respected the play. The room erupted in whispers. Whitney looked like she'd been slapped. "What? Gerald, what is she talking about? What debt?" But I wasn't done. "I've also been approached with an acquisition offer, $800 million for the company. I'm seriously considering it. Which means, Gerald, you have a choice. We can sell and you can walk away with whatever percentage you still own. Or I can keep it and make the decisions from now on. Either way, that company you built on my back, it's mine now." Gerald tried to speak, but nothing came out. Whitney had tears in her eyes, angry tears, betrayed tears. Not because of me, but because Gerald had clearly been hiding how bad things were. I picked up my purse. "I'll let you two talk. Christopher has my contact information for when you're ready to discuss next steps. And Whitney? Good luck with the baby. Being a parent is a big responsibility. So is being honest with your partner." I walked toward the door and the crowd parted like the Red Sea. People who'd been whispering about me minutes ago were now staring with something like respect, or maybe fear, or maybe both. Gerald caught up with me outside. "You did this for revenge?" he demanded. I turned to look at him. Really look at him. This man I'd loved, sacrificed for, built a life with. This man who'd thrown it all away because I wasn't good enough for his new lifestyle. "No," I said. "I did this for business. You taught me that, remember? Personal feelings don't matter. Only results, only success, only power." I stepped closer. "You have 1 week to decide. Sell while the offer's good, or watch me run your company my way. Either way, you'll finally understand what it feels like to have everything you built controlled by someone else." I got in my car and drove away. In my rearview mirror, I could see him standing there looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. The following week, Gerald agreed to the sale. He didn't have much choice. His company, his legacy, his name on the door, all gone because he'd underestimated the woman who'd helped him build it in the first place. I made $408 million from my shares. Gerald made less than half that. And the best part? I didn't feel angry anymore. I didn't feel bitter. I felt free. I used part of the money to start a foundation for Black women entrepreneurs, helping them avoid the mistakes I made, helping them know their worth, document their contributions, and never let anyone reduce their value. The rest I invested in my firm, which is now one of the most respected tech law firms in the country. Gerald and Whitney had their baby boy. I heard they named him something pretentious. Gerald got hired as an executive at another company, working for someone else now, not running his own empire. Whitney's still posting on social media, but the posts have less sparkle these days. I ran into her at a charity event last month. She was polite, almost apologetic. I was gracious. I'd won. There was no need to gloat. People ask me if I regret going to that baby shower, if I regret exposing Gerald like that. But here's the thing. I didn't expose him. I just stopped protecting him. For 12 years, I'd made him look good, made him successful, covered his weaknesses. All I did that day was remove my support and let everyone see what he really was without me. They wanted to humiliate me. They wanted to parade their happiness in front of my pain. Instead, they handed me the perfect moment to take back everything they'd stolen: my dignity, my power, my future. So that's how I walked into my ex-husband's baby shower as the woman he discarded and walked out as his boss. They wanted to humiliate me, but I bought their whole life instead. If this story taught you anything, let it be this: never underestimate the quiet ones who are busy working while others are busy bragging. Now, I need you to do 3 things. First, smash that like button because this story needs to be heard. Second, subscribe and hit that bell so you never miss stories like this. And third, drop a comment telling me, would you have sold the company or kept it just to watch him squirm? I'll be reading every single comment. See you in the next one.